Hereby call to order the Town of Hanson Planning Board meeting for February 10th, 2025. Here at the meeting hall location of the Select Board Meeting Room here at the Town Hall. I'd also like to announce for all those in attendance that this meeting is being recorded for distribution on the Whitman Hanson Community Access. Playback times and other related information on this recording can be found at WHCA.tv. Just for some clerical points, as we have some members and some participation in tonight's audience, please make sure that you sign in to the sign-in sheet. Also, we ask that you silence your cell phones unless you, of course, have an emergency, and then we'd ask you to please take the call out in the lobby area. With that call to order, we have our full town planner office with our town planner and our administrative assistant for the planning office, as well as 4 members of the board here tonight, with member Kemet not going to be able to attend tonight's meeting. First order of business, gentlemen, I would like to take the agenda out of order, so if I could, Chair would entertain a motion to take the agenda out of order.
So moved.
Motion's been made.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstentions? 401, Tony, the meeting will be, 410, Tony, the meeting will be out of order. With that, we're going to go right into the next item of business on our agenda. The time having arrived, 6:30 p.m., I hereby call the continued hearing of the Main Street pedestrian improvements. Verdantis to present and discuss revised design plans. The project consists of replacing and/or constructing approximately 4,000 linear feet of sidewalk along Main Street from High Street to Elm Street. Tom Planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the last meeting, Verdantis had presented what they would call updated plans, and this morning they were able to send along plans which will be up on the screen. And Roy Messier from Verdantis is here to present the plans and what they've done.
Hi, Roy. How are you?
Hey, how you doing? So we were here about 2 weeks ago or so. There's just some updated plans since 2 weeks ago. So I just wanted to highlight of what, not highlight, but basically updates of what we've done since then. So I know there was some question on scale of the plans. So if you go, I think the third sheet and the second sheet are just notes going. The third sheet is key plan of the overall site. So we updated the scale to 20 scale, so it's about the larger scale. You can see some of the items at a better scale, basically that. So the actual sidewalk location, we haven't changed any of that at this time. What we have done as we roll through this, we've highlighted where we have some conflicts right now with some utility poles. So I just want to kind of walk through those locations.
What page do you want to start?
If you want to just C104. Yeah, so this should be C104. Yeah. So so I just want to identify some of these locations. So if you look at between station, can I stand up over there?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Taking this one, highlighted on my plan. Just want to make sure.
Tony, if you zoom in, does that clear up the text?
So
Sorry.
those are the conflicts on the south side of Main Street. So one of the conflicts we're going to have is between station 650 and 700. We have a utility pole. Click up.
Come on.
Busy.
Right?
Okay, yes, of someone.
Can you usually escape it? All right, just keep going.
It's okay, but there's a utility pole here, so at this particular location, we're gonna have to kind of, basically, we have to provide minimum 36 inches ADA access around these utility poles, so this is gonna be one of the areas we identified. We have another one at between station 750 and 800. This one is minimal, it's gonna be in the sidewalk, but we are gonna have it 36 inches towards the street, so that one, there's gonna be no issues there, but we have identified this one as maybe an issue that we have to verify. Go to the next sheet, Tony. Please. you'll see here, there's gonna be 3 of them located here, so station 1200, right here, so just as a point of reference, I think right here, we're right around 1209 Main Street, is the address. So you'll see here, the utility poles smack dab in the middle of the walk, so we have to kind of go around and provide a 36-inch minimum distance around there. And we're still within the right of way, just so everyone understands that. Same thing here, station 1300, same thing's gonna happen, and then station 1400 down here. This one, we shouldn't have a problem with right at the edge, but we just wanna, we would have 36 inches in front of it. But we wouldn't have the full 4-foot width or 5-foot width sidewalk at that location. Next, you should be one, we should be C601, yeah. So 1850, right here is another case where you see we have a utility pole. So the width of the sidewalk would remain, but right here, we would either keep it concrete here, or we could, I'm sorry, concrete, or asphalt, or we would go around it. We would still have the 36 inches there, but there's just not a little area where we can identify that. The next sheet shouldn't be anything on the next plan. There's no issues here in relation to utility pole access until we get right here. There's a pole here, but we do have a 36-inch minimum required from where the pole is to the edge of the edge of the pavement. Is this sheet C104, so it's station 28?
C107.
Yeah, so if we want to go to C108, next sheet. We're gonna have one right here, as you see the utility pole here, so we're not gonna have the full width of the sidewalk at that point. But we'd still be able to meet the 36-inch minimum ADA requirement. You'll see the same thing happening here.
Roy, what's the composition of the sidewalk up to the base of the pole?
So right now, we're proposing everything to be asphalt.
So that's in compliance with the power company as well, and they're okay with that?
Yeah.
So basically, it's incorporating the base of the pole.
It's gonna be in the asphalt, exactly. So what we wanted to do, we went through this after we kind of looked at the scale, we wanted to see where we're gonna have issues, where the utility pole locations were versus the sidewalk width, and maintaining minimum 36-inch ADA clearance. So there's a few areas where we know we're gonna have to, just picture in your head, we have a 4-foot wide sidewalk, we have a utility pole, so we know certain areas are gonna meet it on the inside. If not, the utility pole is smack in the middle, we have to go around it and require the 36 inches. We wanted to make sure if we went around it, we were still within the town's property line, basically, without encroaching on any of the parcel owners.
Is that a common practice to have the asphalt go right up to the pole? Do you ever get any degrading or cracking in the asphalt?
No, because the poles are treated, basically, we've got concrete right around it, or asphalt right around it. Obviously, the asphalt's less expensive. We wouldn't know this until this actually project was out to bid. But,
Sure. You ever seen towns box in the base of the?
We can, it's just another step, we can box it in.
What do they box it in with, a granite or?
When they form it in, we can either form it in, obviously, they will form it in with just some lumber, then those get yanked, and then you would just have the edge of the asphalt, basically, just at the edge of the dirt.
Mr. Ellis?
You mentioned that some of the walks 4 feet wide. I thought it was 5 feet.
So, way back when, not way back when we first came here, we had 5 feet wide, now we're gonna look to make it 4 feet wide, and get some feedback from the, people.
Oh, I thought it was staying mandatory.
And we just have to have 36 inches minimum.
Well, you know, that's ADA compliant.
So for the state, it's either between 4 and 5, so they let you do 48 inches.
Most every place you go now is 5.
Right. We originally had proposed 5, kind of trying to,
Well, 5 makes it easy to
Right, I know.
talk with you, if 2 people are walking down together, and you start getting down to 4 feet, you know, you lose that extra foot.
right now, we have a 4 feet. You know, we originally came in at 5, revised it to 4, but, obviously, Tom prefers 5, we can always go back to that. But right now, with that 4, with the minimum 36 inches at the pole locations.
Being 5, was there any, being intrusive on any of the tree belt? Are we still within the right of way?
Yeah, if we went 5, we would still be within the town right away. The only reason that we went to the 4 is to provide some additional grading, we'll put it out.
Mm.
There's gonna be, there are some areas on Main Street where the grade jumps up, so we have to put that sidewalk in, we have to cut that back, and we still need room to grade, to tie into the existing grade. There's a couple locations that work into the equation. And, oh, on roll to the next sheet, please. You see, we have a utility pole here, so we have the same condition there, and we have another condition over here. And this is High Street here, just kind of, here where we are. This is the end of the project right here.
No issues with any drainage?
No, so we're not touching anything on the roadway, so where the end of the pavement is now, the end of the pavement is gonna remain. And the sidewalks would from there, and the roadway, the sidewalks would be pitched towards the roads.
You didn't see any catch basins or anything that would be intrusive on that sidewalk?
There are some catch basins there, but we wouldn't be in,
You don't have to go near it.
right,
Any other questions from the board? Town plan?
On the north side of the road,
Yeah.
any conflicts like that at all?
We didn't identify any, we had some pole, it wasn't pole hydrants, but nothing that wasn't gonna be properly difficult, so,
And so on the north side, you could consistently stay at about 48 inches?
yes.
Good.
Yeah.
So
right now.
big picture is utility poles south side, hydrants on the north side, but the north side, we have the room to work, it wasn't too many of them.
As this is a public hearing, I'd like to open up the floor to the audience, so please, for the record, state your name and your address.
Joe Clemens, 46 Main Street.
Mr. Clemens.
Back, I think it's near sheet 6, C107, further to the west, sort of move left in this view. One more. Let's see. One more, please. Further to the left. Oh, the wrong side. I didn't know.
Center.
Wait, no,
Yeah.
I was trying to identify some of the section of roadway which fronts on the rather lengthy brick and et cetera, construction of the old Ocean Spray Cranberry Company building. This does not look like that, right? It looks more like the railroad tracks. I can't quite place this.
That's the Ocean Spray building right there.
Okay. Somehow this looks less clear than when it first came on. Okay, I probably misunderstood what I was looking at. It looked like all of a sudden the sidewalk was proposed right in front of the building, but now I can see that it terminates.
No,
It terminates where the building commences. Let's call it the northwest corner of the building. Yes, okay. I wasn't clear about that. Thank you, Jerry.
Any other questions and comments?
Excuse me, one
Yes,
more
Mr. Clemens.
Maybe going back a little further to the west, whatever the number is, I thought I saw a place or two somewhere where if the slightly wavy black line shows where you would have to deviate to get around, it looked like in a couple of places that might actually protrude maybe somewhere beyond the road layout. Maybe it's not here, maybe it's further east. But I thought I saw a place or two where there was an intrusion.
So anytime we're bumping out, we're not bumping it out, obviously, for the road to be towards,
Sure.
right.
Yeah.
So that's what we want to make sure that we're still gonna be within the town's right of way. So we just, as an example, we have two here that we would be encroaching around, and the red line is basically the town's right of way line. You can see that, we're within that.
Yeah.
And just so you know, we're gonna come back here one more time again, obviously, or maybe a couple more times as we go through this process.
So if you can bear with me, maybe move east or right, whatever the numbers are, a few more times, because I thought I saw an image, and it wasn't this one. Keep going. Scroll it short. Look at this one right here.
So right now
The
we're
middle
going
of the bottom line there, the red line is crossed over by the black line. Is that significant? There you go. That's what we're talking about. Was there
This
an
one
issue
right
there? Yeah. And now you're outside the road layout.
Right, we're outside the road right here, so this is the utility pole here, right here.
Yeah.
But we have a room on the inside, and I'm not sure what this bump out is for.
But that looks like something you're trying to not do.
Right, that looks something we, so I'm not sure what this line is for, so that's a station very different, we'll take a look at that.
That's what I was thinking. That's directly opposite the building, which is, almost opposite Foster Street right there. Yeah. So,
Yeah, I'm not sure why this line is coming out here, what the issue, what,
yeah.
it's just a traffic line, we'll check that out.
Is that coming right across the intersection? That's Phillips Street.
No, that's Foster Street right there.
Thank you, Foster Street, appreciate it.
This is the Egan property, right?
Okay.
The brand new building.
Are they putting in sidewalks as part of this,
It wasn't a career.
Okay.
Oh, well, that looks like a myth, I'm sorry to say, should not have required that. It's such an enormous building where people are supposed to walk down to the train station.
Different board.
Are there street numbers on this?
State your name, sir, for the record, and
What?
you are, state your name for the record.
Edwin Hill, 116 Pine Grove.
I'll be Select Board Member Heel, thank you for coming to the planning board meeting, appreciate it.
I just didn't, I'm just trying to do the same thing and trying to picture where it is.
Yes.
It would help to have
Yeah, if you
house
zoom,
numbers.
they're not street numbers, if you zoom out to it.
Yeah, we're in pretty deep.
Yeah, we're pretty
The
deep.
one on top, what we used to call 1,000
So-
building.
So this, it's hard to read here because we kind of, everything kind of got kind of screwed up.
It just makes it
When we-
easier to-
When we change the scale, all this text and stuff, it's hard to read up here, but, these are.
That is the house, all right, okay.
We wanted to see a little bit of overlay as far as the lines as opposed to the topography picture behind it, so that's.
Yeah.
why
Well, we'll adjust this as we go. I can see up here, it's 10, 12. but-
So you guys
I know
can
you
see it
guys
when
can
you
see
want.
it.
Yes.
And then there was one where the street came in from the top, and there was a little island at the bottom, and there wasn't a crosswalk at the bottom. So
High Street?
Are you putting I see crosswalks on some, but not on others. Like that one there has a crosswalk on it.
Yeah, so this crosswalk here, so we can get people here, right here. Can you go back to the other one that you mentioned?
There was
it
one
High-
that had
was it
a
High
island
Street?
on where the road came in from the top. Like the road was parallel to the horizontal.
Maybe we're starting behind Street.
That's not,
That's the train tracks.
That's that one.
Yeah, so we had a crosswalk
Is there a
here.
crosswalk? Okay, so the crosswalk doesn't go across the top between the two,
well, it should be.
Right, we're not proposing one.
Well, there's one there now.
Yeah, that's correct. I
but it's not,
think it just needs to be repainted.
We're proposing new crosswalks, if there's one already there. We can add it, like, we can, if you, up to you guys, we can always show here as, you know, when this project ever does go out to bid, at least we can identify it and say, you know, restrike as necessary, something like that.
Check the line budget for anything.
I think it's a good idea, is just put a note that
Freshen it up.
where there's crosswalks that are part of the project, that they just, if they need to, just be restriped.
I'm waiting for the vote to come forward about doing red, white, and blue like another surrounding town on the South Shore. Nice parade route. Yes,
Aaron Laporte, 1202 Main Street.
Ms. Laporte.
How deep do they dig to put the footing in for the sidewalk? I'm just curious because there's
So,
a number of water mains, gas mains, and all kinds of
right,
things.
so you understand what the, so, Tony, can you explain a little very much sheet?
Is it surface or is it?
So the asphalt makeup, the very last one, so the, sort of, right, so the asphalt makeup, how do we here, but it's typically 4 inches, 4 inches thick with the 6 inches of aggregate subbase underneath it.
Okay.
So altogether it's about 10 inches. If it's concrete, probably be
So
12 inches.
basically
Between
about
10 and 12 inches.
10 inches of interruption and so on.
Yes.
We have a gas main in front of our house and I would not want to see that messed with.
No.
And also there are large water mains going through to the town of Brockton. Because,
The water is typically 60 inches below ground. Gas can be anywhere between 24 and
Okay.
36 inches, so.
I know Hanson water
so-
main goes up there too.
So this
So I'm
shouldn't,
just
this shouldn't have
curious
any
because
effect on any.
We had a lot of disruption when they put in the water
Okay.
mains, let me tell you. And, I'm just curious how much is gonna be disturbed. We lost part of our hedge due to the business.
Right now, we have it at 12 inches.
8 to 12 inches.
There's a question for the board. Will any of this need to be presented to or run by the city of Brockton? Because they have significant infrastructure, as was just mentioned, under both sides of the street, probably under a significant number of every inch of the sidewalk. They have 24-inch aqueducts from Silver to the city. And will they be part of the review, or are we just crossing our fingers?
They're gonna get notification, they'll certainly get notification.
Okay.
What we were thinking about doing with Brockton was, we were thinking about just cutting it off at one end and telling them that they owe us.
Well,
No, joke, that's a joke.
they should pay for the transit of water.
That's right.
and move it.
So, but they're gonna, anybody that has anything in there for any utilities, whether it be Brockton Water or any of the utility companies, that everybody's gonna be notified about the project.
But the water main, just so I understand, the water main is really the actual motorway, but not.
Right, it's in the roadway.
Well,
Well,
I think there's 3 mains there.
Yeah,
There's a
there's
main
where
for
it
the town of
deviates.
Hanson, and there's 2 aqueducts for the city of Brockton. Brockton, 24 inch in diameter, not small, highly significant, and just bringing
I think where a lot of it deviates, the edge of the road is more towards like the Progress Way, Meadowbrook Restaurant, that area there. They had a recent leak actually. That was eye-opening as to where they were digging, for certain.
they've done lots of places.
Anybody have any other comments or questions? Any concerns at all? Great, thank you. We appreciate your presentation.
Yeah, like I said, obviously, we'll be back one more time.
Do you want, Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yeah, sure. No problem. Trying to look at
When
schedule.
would you like to come back? March or April?
So I know we had, last time we were here a couple of weeks ago, so we came back, I actually thought we were gonna be here at the end of February, so I know it was a little bit early, so you could give us maybe a month.
So we'll do March 24th, which will be the fourth Monday of the month.
March 24th?
Sound good?
for- This way, it's more, graphics, kind of clean this up, make it look a little better next time. we
Sure.
show it here.
Entertain a motion from the board to continue this public hearing until March 24th. So motion's been made by Mr. Benonato. I got Mr. Cohen seconding that. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? And abstentions. 4-1-0. So we'll see you again at the end of March. Thank you,
Yes.
Roy. Appreciate your
Thank you.
time. Seeing the time have arrived, I'm going to open up the continued hearing for the update of the Hanson Housing Production Plan. Discuss draft housing production plan, chapters as a result of the committee and board input. Town planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The author of the current housing production plan couldn't be here this evening, so what she had sent me and I had sent to the board was the last draft. It was just a clean copy for the board. We are on the agenda for February the 25th before the select board to present the housing production plan and get input from the select board. So then after that, I'm sure she'll take that information, any concerns, questions, edits from the select board, incorporate it, and then come back to the planning board for further discussion. So that is just something, unless the board, after reading it over the weekend, had any questions, comments, or edits.
Mr. Benonato?
Yeah, my only comment is kind of something that I continue to bring up. I have a question with part of the production plan that says that we have to comply with the MBTA housing. Can't agree with that. It's gonna be difficult for the town to accept that as well.
Okay. Make note of it.
All right, do we want to see if she wants to come the night before the 25th? So, because we'll have a meeting tentatively on the 24th, or anything it's going to be.
Well, she's probably come in after the 24th meeting,
Yeah.
you know, so like maybe the first meeting in March.
After the select board's
Yeah,
meeting on the 25th? Okay. So tentatively to the 10th.
correct.
Entertain a motion to move this public hearing till March 10th, which will be our first meeting in March.
So,
Motion's been made by Mr. Benonato, seconded by Mr. Ellis. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 410. We'll continue that until
What's the date?
March 10th, tentatively March 10th. I'm sure there's probably going to be something that comes out of the select board's meeting on the 25th. Great. The time having arrived, what time is it?
6:56.
While we are at the agenda out of order, any other board members have any comments in regards to the minutes from January 27, 2025? If not, I'll entertain a motion to accept the minutes of January 2025.
so moved.
Second. Motion's been made by Mr. Benonato, properly seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to accepting the minutes for January 27th of 2025? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 410, Tony?
401.
401, thank you. Keep saying that backwards. And anything else we can squeeze in? You have some invoices, Tony, that need to be paid?
Yes, we have an invoice for the Whitman Hanson Express.
Thank you very much. Invoice for advertisements in the Whitman Hanson Express, February 10th, 2025, to the tune of $90. Any questions, comments, or concerns or signature for that? Great.
That is for the open space and recreation plan public hearing that'll be taking place on the 24th of February.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Time having arrived at 7 PM, I'm going to open the continued hearing for the proposed zoning bylaw amendment to remove sections 6B, 6G, and 6I in their entirety and replace with new language conforming with 760 CMR section 7101-71 to 71.04. The new bylaw will provide for regulation to allow for attached and detached accessory dwelling units, commonly referred to as ADUs, as of right, and to meet Mass General Chapter 40A, Section 3. Town planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So at the last meeting, there was some edits made to the bylaw amendment. I passed it along to town council. He reviewed it. He made comments, made a couple of edits. And so the language that was sent to the board to review was the final draft of the ADU bylaw by town council. So what would happen, so what, the idea,
I'll get it.
so the idea is, if the board so chooses, this is obviously part of the public hearing and the report to be made to the select board to move forward to town meeting for approval by the citizens at town meeting. One thing with these regulations is because the law took effect February 2nd, we had our public hearing notice prior to that, and under section 6, when that happens, the regulations that you have here are the ones that will be followed by anyone coming in and making an application until such time as they are approved at town meeting. So our old bylaw that refers to these is basically void. So these are the regulations that will take place in the interim until such time as they are approved at town meeting and ultimately approved by the Attorney General.
Hey, it was a good bylaw for 4 months.
Yeah, pretty much, you know.
Any questions, comments, edits, omissions from the board? As this is a public hearing, anybody from the audience that would like to make any questions, comments, or concerns about the ADU bylaw? Mr. Heel?
Ed Heel, 116 Pine Grove
Mr.
Ave.
Heel?
Just basically, is it to add the as of right? Is that really what changes, or is there other changes as well?
Yeah, there were many changes that we had from our original, the town of Hanson's original, that got edited, omitted, changed by the state. There were some things that were changed that we had in there that were regulatory about the property owner, the principal homeowner, but that's now gone. And it does make it as of right, so now we do have to conform to.
So Massachusetts is
That's correct.
is pushing that on us. As of right, we need to change our bylaw to add as of right.
By my-
as
by my-
Massachusetts.
Town planner?
Yes, so our ADU bylaw, we had what was known as in-law, and then we came up with a detached accessory dwelling unit. This will be, the word in-law goes away because now it's just attached and detached. What was, we had a special permit requirement, we had a owner occupation requirement. So under the legislation in the zoning act under section 3, okay, on section 3 of the zoning act is commonly called the Dover Act. Within that part of the zoning act are uses that are allowed as of right, where a town can provide regulation but cannot ban them, such as solar, battery storage farms. And so in that section, they've added this. What we can do is we can still have and still require site plan review through the zoning department, zoning board of appeals. What that allows is for the zoning board to review the site plan, verify it conforms with the setback requirements and the bylaw, allows for input by any abutters so they know what's going on. There's, maybe discussion of, let's say, screening or parking locations, etc. The units themselves, whether attached or detached, have to meet all of Title V requirements, which is for septic, any wetland requirements, well, building codes, all that. So the changes were, yes, they took away the special permit requirement, made it as of right. They took away the ability for the town to say it has to be owner occupied. And they have made it easier because of the housing issue.
And when did the state do that? Is that recent? That they just,
So at the end of, I believe it was the end of last year, they passed what was known as the Affordable Homes Act. Now it sounds, and in it was the ADU changes. The town cannot put something, you cannot restrict it any more than you have restrictions for a use in that zone. So for instance, in a single-family zone, a residence A or double A,
And this is.
whatever your requirements for that principal dwelling are, you can't make it stricter
Right.
on these.
But we can't stop anybody that wants to make an ADU, and as long as it's within the rest of our requirements that we already have in place, they can put that ADU, not in the front yard, but.
Right.
That's right.
And the state is also allowing for, the first one is as of right. If you want to have a second one, then you have to go for a special permit. And one of the things we have in this bylaw is a area requirement for the lot if you're trying to pursue a second ADU, and that's a special permit through the zoning board of appeals.
So the town's gonna need a vote on this, right? Basically, is there gonna be?
Well, this will be
Change?
this will be a bylaw change. It'll be a bylaw change to our existing bylaw.
Right. I mean, this is another big one in my mind, but.
We've had, is it two? Is the second one completely successful? We had one ADU that applied under the old bylaw,
Correct.
and it's actually phenomenal. The homeowner did a wonderful job with it. So there's caveats on both sides. That person was trying to have aging parents stay, and that's how the success of this came forward. You know, I don't know if the second one ever came through. I think it got pulled.
I don't think so.
I don't think it meant to.
We had, prior to our old bylaw, we had, and one of the reasons why that came to be was because we had a lot of citizens coming to town hall and to the land use departments, specifically asking about those ADUs. A lot of cases, it was either for aging parents or so that for aging parents to move closer to their sons and daughters, or vice versa, where the parents are moving into the ADU and the children moving back into the principal dwelling. So there was,
That's all in here, but they took that requirement out of the law, that it doesn't need to be a family member.
right,
Right.
right.
Yeah.
We never had that it had to be a family member. All we had was that it was owner occupied. For, I believe it was 18 out of 24 months of the year.
The majority
2
of the
years,
year.
yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
I got a
Mr.
question.
Bernardo? Yes.
And we still can't use these as affordable housing.
There is no language right now regarding that. That might come in, because even though we're doing this and the law passed, it's still a bit of a, as they like to use, let's say, a fluid situation. So, but the discussion right now is no, that it's not. And the reason is most of these are going to be private homeowners adding some kind of space, either to rent out for income or to aged parents or children. They wouldn't want to exactly strap themselves or put a burden on the property that, and it's an affordable unit. Might that come into play at a later date? Possibly. You know, because if you look at the fact that it doesn't have to be owner occupied, you could buy a property that has a single family house on it. You could propose an ADU, and then if you want to, you could make it affordable. But there's already another mechanism, which is 40B. You know, most developers are not going to buy a single family and then put an ADU and go through the whole 40B process. If they're going to do that, they're going to put multiple units on a piece of property.
For the record, there was a recent presentation from the OHLC. I sent that exact question into the OHLC. I never got a response, nor did they ask the question during the Q&A section of the presentation.
it's one of those things where we're doing this and they're still sort of working all the bugs. Kind of like when, you know, you get Windows 11 and then a week later you get all the patches because they sent it out real early.
Tony, do we have time, do we want to have action to move this to the select board before
Yeah, so what,
February? And it's pretty shovel ready as far as May top meeting goes.
right,
Not much,
so,
there's no reason to kick the can or anything like that.
correct. So right now, we have a placeholder for this. And so if the board so decides to move this forward, then I would file this with I'd file the vote with the town clerk,
Yeah,
send this off to the select board saying what the result was, and then the select board would decide whether or not to move it up to town meeting.
do you want to, we're trying to gain that before the 25th? Because I know they're in budget season.
Yeah, I mean, if you're ready to move it forward, then I'd say vote it tonight and move it forward.
What's the will of the board?
Let's vote.
To the planning board? Entertain a motion to move the updated accessory dwelling units bylaw to the select board. Select board.
So move.
Motion's been made by Mr. Benonato.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, 4-0-1. So that way, that will get on, we'll give them plenty of time to talk about that. And if they needed to come back to us, it would come back possibly in March.
Yeah.
We've still got time, because that doesn't need to be closed up until end of March, correct?
Yeah, I'd have to look at the schedule, but it's, yeah, about the end of March.
You got a question?
Yes.
Hi, Stacy Stadbeck, High Street.
Hi, Stacy, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Is this included in the 3A zone, or is this just? all
Nothing to,
over here?
yeah, completely separate.
Okay,
Yeah, completely different and separate from that.
thank you.
Same state mechanism. So protocol is still the same, but the actual composition and how this changes the town's bylaw, that's a separate issue. So we've moved that to the select board for them to vote on that. Any other issues for this public hearing? Any other questions, comments, or concerns? I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing. Motion's made by Mr. Ellis. Seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 401, Tony. That public hearing is now closed. But we are going to talk about that in a second. It's still on the agenda. I knew where you were going with it. Yeah, there we go.
We have an A&R.
Thank you. Next up on the agenda is we have an appointment, 7:05, we're a little delayed at 7:14, for approval not required plan 872 and 884 Winter Street, Assessors Map 114, Lot 16, and Map 114, Lot 16-2. Applicant Howard Family Trust and David and Irma Howard. Plan prepared by Merrill Associates. Town planner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So there was an initial plan, which is what the board received. There were some comments I had made. I had sent it back to Merrill. They made the revisions. They dropped it off on Friday. So the plan you have before you is that plan. There wasn't anything significant other than minor, basically add a couple of notes here and there. So what you have here is the owners, the current owners of 872 Winter Street. Their driveway currently encroaches on the property of 884 Winter. So what this plan proposes is an even swap of land so that both properties still remain in compliance with zoning. And this way, the driveway for 872 Winter Street will now be within their own boundary. So you have what is shown as Lot A, which is 1,989 square feet along the edge of the driveway. And then you have Lot B, which is in the back, which is equal in square footage. So both properties still conform with zoning and area. They what they had before is what they'll have now. It's just a matter of the driveway now, instead of encroaching, is on the 872 boundary.
Any questions from the board? A&R checklist is on file?
Yes, sir. I checked it, and they have met all the requirements of the checklist.
Where about Citrus on Winter Street? Find out. It'll be up.
Too far, it's more towards, it's more towards the intersection. Right-hand side.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
If I might.
Plan.
Mr. Ellis, it's right next door to Don Howard's house.
Right near there,
It's right next door.
right next door, yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Dwight Howard is
Is
this,
it north of his house?
it's literally right next door. Yeah.
You look like one of them, your brother.
There's another one behind us.
They're all over the place.
Poor boys.
Yeah.
Any questions from the board? Any comments?
Taking good care of him too, Don. You know? Gets his dinner over to one of you. I think it's, because I have to pick him up for meetings sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Entertained a motion to approve the A&R is filed. Motion's been made by Mr. Benonato, seconded by Mr. Cohen. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? 4012. Do you need me to do just a Mylar, or you got the Mylar? You need one of these as well?
I do have one.
You got one in there?
Oh, hold on. So, yeah, give me two.
And who am I making this check out to?
Did he lose his garden?
Did he lose it?
No.
He also used the gun, he doesn't lose it.
No, I think you're talking to me.
Donnie, his daughter does him, his guy.
Yeah. That's not what he said.
Really?
Budget's out
She's out there working.
She tried to use one for one day, he had to jump in because she wasn't doing it right.
Yeah, listen, whenever that Volkswagen Bug wants to go up for sale, you got a lot of people that,
Really?
oh, you guys don't know about the
I know
Volkswagen?
about that.
Brothers are keeping secrets. Well, there you go, you get that on file, and you guys will be all set. Thank you very much.
That's all I need, right?
Yep.
What do you have?
Thank you.
Thank
Donnie.
you. Yep, I thank you so
Sure thing,
much.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right. And the moment everybody's been waiting for. Well, unless you want to stay around for our grant update.
JC, you still want some of that radio equipment?
Oh, yeah, the power supply.
Yeah, I still, it's up in the bank.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you very much.
I will be getting it down, but
Okay. It's heavy stuff.
I'll get a chink bump.
Oh,
I can manage.
I appreciate it.
So fine.
We're all set with that, all set with that. Moving on, we're gonna go to our next appointment, and that's the 7/10, again, a little delayed. Discussion amending the Town of Hanson zoning map and the Town of Hanson's land use regulation zoning bylaw to create an MBTA district map and draft zoning bylaw in accordance with the requirements of Massachusetts general laws, Chapter 40A, Section 3A, and Section 5. Town planner.
Okay, so here we are again. New information regarding the MBTA. As the board is aware, there was a court case between the town of Milton and the Attorney General's office that went before the State Judicial Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled that the law was constitutional, that the Attorney General could enforce the law, and that not accepting, or we'll say giving up on the grants, was not a reason to not comply with the law. What the state has done, what went against the Attorney General was the fact that the guidelines were not promulgated correctly, and they are in process of doing so.
For the public, Tony, can you explain the promulgation process? About
So-
where they failed?
So what they did is they were supposed to basically advertise and follow a process. They didn't follow that process correctly. They didn't feel they had to, because they felt it was guidelines. A court disagreed and said that they have to follow that process. So what they did is they put in place emergency guidelines, which are basically the same guidelines, but now they're in place for 90 days. Also, what they said is that communities that are non-compliant will actually be in compliance, if you will, if we file an action plan by February 13th. Now, what that'll allow us to do is get 2 grants that we were supposed to get at the end of last year. And this information, I wasn't aware, because I thought we were out of compliance, but Representative Sweezy, and during a presentation before the select board, I believe it was about 2 weeks ago,
Yep.
stated that, we're in interim compliance. So 2 key factors come into play. 1, the town has to provide an action plan by February 13th. 2, the town is supposed to be in compliance by July 14th of 2025. After July 14th, if we're non-compliant, don't know. There's still a lot of moving parts. There's still probably going to be a lot of court cases we don't know. So what I have before you tonight is that's the new information, and this is just before the board to determine if they choose to propose these amendments to the select board for their consideration. The planning board is one of a few different entities that can propose bylaws. The zoning board is one, the select board is another, regional planning agency, citizens, and in this citizens petition, which in this case, because it's May town meeting, it's 10, can recommend to the select board as bylaw amendment. As part of the process, though, even if any one of those other entities was to propose that, the select board has to turn it over to the planning board for a public hearing. That's part of the process that cannot be circumvented. So this is just me putting it before the planning board, whatever the planning board would like to do.
You got it. So just for some clarification, what the town planner was talking about, when he spoke about how there was a court case, that was the state's Supreme Judicial Court. So this went all the way up to the SJC, the State Judicial Court. And then the other part of that, that I'd like to clarify for the public is, as Tony was mentioning, the entities that can recommend this back to the select board, besides citizen petition, besides the planning board, it can also be the zoning board of appeals. When the town planner is speaking about the regional planning office, what he's referring to is Old Colony Planning Council. That is our regional planning office that we have agreed up with, just to clarify those things. So in any entity, it's very well laid out that it's going to be proposed at some point back to the town again.
If I may, Mr. Chair. Now, again, as part of the process, any entity that submits to the select board for their consideration any kind of zoning bylaw amendment, the select board must send it to the planning board for a report. Then the planning board can either offer a report verbally, written, or not offer a report at all. But they have to have a public hearing. After 21 days after that public hearing, then the select board could either approve, deny, or edit the bylaw and then move it forward to town meeting or not move it forward to town meeting. But that process, as far as it coming to the planning board for a public hearing, that has to happen no matter who proposes it to the
Right,
select.
doesn't matter.
Now, I'd also like to add, just as information, during Mr. Sweezy's presentation, town council is also there. And again, there's a lot of moving parts still here. We don't know really what the final outcome will be. Representative Sweezy is talking about submitting legislation. We don't know when that might happen. Two things that town council had mentioned was, and I'm gonna call them the thermonuclear option. The state could either she said that it was talk of the state creates the bylaw, and basically is a third party that creates the bylaw and says, well, here's the bylaw. Another option they talked about was the state telling the building commissioner, if someone comes in for a permit, it's an as of right, that's the law, you have to give them the permit. Now, of course, that would put any building commissioner the town might have in a serious situation, and my guess is we'd probably lose our building commissioner because there'd be such a headache, you know. But those are all, could be,
Potential
maybe,
Yeah.
we don't really know. We don't know in the end what's gonna happen.
So in comparison to, if we take this time frame that we are in now, and we compare it to, say, the exact time frame 1 year ago today, February 2024, what's before us now is small action on the town's behalf to stay in quote-unquote compliance, very much like we were last year, where we were in compliance until December of 2024. And as a result of staying within that compliance, we did receive some grants that were filed. We weren't taken away from those. It wasn't until December happened where we came out of compliance. Some of that was as a result of this board taking no action on the second bite at the apple, for lack of better terms, to put towards the select board again, to move towards the town again. This board took no action. No other entity took action. And therefore, that's what created the December non-compliance until this time frame. So if we compare today's date with last year's date, we're back in that same bucket again, where we've got a little bit of action from the town, keeps us within compliance, and that little bit of action will be a statement of action or for the 13th.
So we'll file, I'm actually gonna go before the select board tomorrow night.
Yeah.
I've filled out the action plan, but I have not submitted it.
Right.
Part of that action plan was a statement that had to be signed by the town administrator. She has done that, but this is still pending.
Yeah.
Tomorrow night, I'm gonna be before the select board. What Representative Sweezy was able to let us know was that when that action plan is filed, so we were supposed to get 2 grants that the contract would have been executed on January 1st, 2025.
It's a library grant.
That one would have been one of them, but I'm just talking about like the 2 one-stop,
The one-stops,
the
okay.
2 one-stop
Sure.
grants, which are the ones that they said, you don't comply, you can't go to any of these grants.
We couldn't check the box on the form.
Correct. So at the end of 2024, there was 2 grants we received through One Stop. One was for $237,000 and the other was for $70,000. Those contracts would have been executed on January 1st, 2025. Because of the non-compliance, they were not executed. Representative Sweezy has found out that once the action plan goes in place, then the state will execute those 2 contracts by the end of February. Now, the good part is it's a contract. So when they sign it, I hope, and I don't think they could break it because it'd be a breach of contract.
Right.
So now we can take them to court for that.
Sure, yeah.
So at least we're gonna get that money.
Right.
After the July 14th, if the town decides to not be compliant, then I don't know what'll happen. We can only make an assumption that something's gonna happen.
We'll be in that
Yeah.
same situation as we were just in regards to the litigation about with Milton.
Correct.
We'll be back in that, cloud, everybody bouncing around ideas about what the potential would be. That would be after July 13th,
July 14th, yeah.
July 14th.
So if the town decides to not do anything,
Right.
then on July 15th, we'll find out what'll happen.
Find out. Mr.
But the
Mayor,
only difference is this year, we're waiting on how the motions are gonna go in the state legislature.
Which we don't know.
We have no-
We have no idea when it might take place. You know, one thing that we do know, at Maytown meeting, there will most likely be if the town does not wish to pursue or comply, then there would have to be some kind of article to cover the cost of the litigation process.
Sure.
But I'm just bringing this to the board. I leave it up to the board as to what they
Well,
want to do.
then you could also have,
There's a million different things that could happen that we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns and
between May and July, you could have a call of a special town meeting.
Mhm.
To see if that would happen, but that, okay.
what,
Understand.
I don't know what'll happen. I can't tell you what the state's gonna do. We can only speculate that, okay, if on July 15th you're non-compliant, you know, is the town gonna get taken to the SJC, and what would the SJC
Right,
do?
right.
Was the SJC gonna, at some point, if they're saying that the Attorney General has the right to make you compliant, then they'll figure out something to try and make us compliant if we're not compliant.
If the state is, let's go down, I don't want, it's very dangerous going down this road, but let's go down the road of nothing happens for the town of Hanson, and we pass that July timeframe, and the state does decide to flex again and make this, it would be a mass general law then, would it not? And if that's the case, does that mean that would have to be a ballot question on the November ballot?
When you say a ballot question, as far as the state's concerned?
Correct.
For the whole Commonwealth?
Yes, statewide.
I don't know. I'd have to research that. I mean,
Well, it would be statewide because it doesn't affect all towns in the state. It only
Correct.
affects
I mean-
towns that has the MBTA.
I mean, the fact that this is section 3A, it's possible they could go into the legislation just like section 3, which is the Dover Act, and say, this is as of right, like a solar farm, and you can put some regulations in, but you cannot deny it. You know, there's all kinds of outcomes we just don't know. One thing we do know is that February 13th, you have to have an action plan in to be interim compliant. July 14th is right now, the deadline is to be compliant or not be compliant.
So we do the action plan, we're good till July.
Right. Unless something major happens in the legislature that is extended. Or there's a court case that overturns things, don't know.
Any other questions from the board?
As this is an appointment, it's not treated the same as a public hearing, but I certainly know how important this is for the town of Hanson, as well as our action, the select board's action, everybody. I absolutely want to open the floor for any public comment.
Ed Heald, 116 Pine Grove Ave. I hate when the state does this to us. They're
Yeah.
putting us at a position where we're gonna lie to them and tell them we're gonna be compliant, when we have absolutely no plan on being compliant. The townspeople, not us, the townspeople told us we don't want to be pushed around by the state. We've been pushed around too much. As a select board member, we need the money. We need the grants. So it puts us in an extremely
Yeah, rock and a hard place.
position because we need the money. I'm probably not, I'm not gonna say, but tomorrow night, are we gonna vote on it or is it just, you said we
Depends
have
on
to
what
say
happens
yes?
next.
Well, the action plan has to be filed by the 13th. Again, it's filled out and the letter is written. And it's up to the
So we have
select,
to approve it
it's up to the select board to say,
because I.
basically tomorrow night, the select board has to let me know whether they want me to file that action plan or not.
Okay. As of now, I'm voting.
Do we have to?
There's a vote. I am sick of the state pushing their weight around. I do want the money, but I don't want it because they're gonna push their weight. We say yes, we say no. They're gonna push their weight a different way, no matter what we do. It's not, I think we need to say no, to let them know Hanson said no. Because Hanson did say no.
Town planner.
Well, Representative Sweetie said that filing the action plan, filing the action plan, you're saying we're gonna do everything possible to be compliant, but you're not saying we're going to be compliant.
Right.
So
Okay,
the one thing that does is it gets us $300,000. It still has to go to town meeting. They know that, still has to go to town meeting.
Right.
So at any point after that, it's up to the citizens. If it was to go to town meeting, it would still be up to the citizens. And then after July 14th, then it's,
and most of the people that we talk to say, we've already voted on this twice. How many times are you gonna vote on it? We're gonna vote on it until we vote the right way?
On the MBTA?
Yeah.
But the correction for that is actually, that's only been voted on at town meeting once. It never came a second time because nobody put it forward again.
We did okay, I thought we did 2 different town meetings.
It could have happened last fall, but it was never put forward again. This board took no action to recommend to the select board or.
Did we have a special town meeting? I forget what date it was, but maybe I'm totally.
It was on-
MBTA had nothing to do.
It was on as a
MBTA was,
placeholder, but it never made it to the articles.
yeah.
Okay.
It's good.
It does seem like we're voting no an awful lot.
Yeah.
And then it makes it look like we are voting yes against the town, when we are not voting yes against the
That's right.
town. We're voting yes to do the right thing for the town. So it's a balancing act. I don't envy you.
Stacy Stevic.
The seven.
It is terrible because we know you guys are in between a rock and a hard place, at the select board. And yes, we do need the money. It's apparent, really apparent. And the threat, it's just that if we can keep delaying it and just, I don't know where we stand with that group lawsuit, like, aside from Milton, if we're in another one. I mean, it's just extortion by the state. It really is, and it's not fair at all.
And we could, yes.
Annette Benato.
Hi, Ms. Benato.
16 Brookside Drive. To Stacy's point, they have filed another lawsuit recently against the state in Maura Haley's use of the emergency preamble, saying that there's a housing emergency. So that was a week ago, they filed that lawsuit. And then we joined the lawsuit, the town of Hanson. I have collected enough signatures from the residents to join that lawsuit. And that lawsuit challenges actually the home rule constitutionality of MBTA zoning. Because they ruled a long time ago that municipalities had the right to control the zoning in their communities. The state judicial court ruled in favor of our municipalities. So they haven't actually heard that case again, the Rockport case. So I don't know when that will be heard, but there's a lot of lawsuits filed. There's over 20 amendments to the MBTA zoning. I know Representative Sweezy is working bipartisan with other, representatives around the state because there's over 20 amendments filed. So, I mean, there's a lot going on. I wouldn't pressure the town to make a decision to comply with, Governor Haley's demand.
Oh, I'm not making any,
Town planner.
I'm not making any,
No, not saying.
yeah, I'm just as part of the law, I'm just bringing it to the board and saying, it's at the pleasure of the board, what they wish to do. I have, I have my personal opinion, which is, I don't like mandates from the state telling me what to do.
Right.
But I can't, my personal opinion is irrelevant to following the law and in having Hanson, So the best I can do is just say,
You also don't live in
Hey.
Hanson.
well, I don't live in Hanson, but it's still about following,
That's right. You've got the same problem in your town.
Right. It's still, I may not live in Hanson, but I look at Hanson. No, I know. I still look at Hanson as like, I'm trying to do what's best for Hanson. And all I'm doing is just, hey, here's what we knew then. Here's what we know now. I put it before you. The board decides what you want to do,
Yeah.
you know?
And for the record, your office has always done what's best for the town. It
So-
always has. Yeah. Couldn't ask for anything better.
You know, unfortunately, my personal opinion is, you know, it's irrelevant. It's about following the law, you know?
And for anybody that listens to a re-recording of this meeting, this planning board, as well as Mr. Kemet, who's not here tonight, but this planning board hears everything that everybody has stated and said and sent in correspondence. We have received it. It's been received over and over again, and we absolutely hear what the town is saying. And the only ask back to any citizen of the town is to continue to hammer and reach out to your legislation, all the legislation, those that are understanding of what we have and those that have turned a blind eye. Because perhaps MBTA zoning in a different community that's under their jurisdiction might be beneficial to that community. It's loud and clear how the town feels about things. We knew that. I knew that the first night I stood on the microphone. We knew that. But again, we have to go through the whole procedure to be able to get to the point we're at. But there is some significant points that we sound like we may have an opportunity to continue. I don't want to say kick the can down the road, but that's a less term that I could use, I could find. So,
So yes, the board,
Do you need
the board does not have to take any action. The board can not vote
well, no matter what, it's,
or,
if the
pass it on.
select board is going to be voting on whether or not that letter of action or the action plan goes in place, if they're voting on that tomorrow night, I'm sure that they're gonna wanna have some kind of report about what the planning board came up with.
So we should decide on at least the action plan.
So it's a matter of us sponsoring and supporting the action plan favorably, and then to see where that goes. Regardless of anything, it's going to come back to this board for a public hearing.
not the action plan.
No, not the action plan, the MBTA zoning.
Right.
Yeah.
So what?
Yeah,
What
we've got some time.
Right. So what this is just like last July.
Yeah.
We're bringing it to I bring it to the planning board and say, is the planning board interested in recommending this zoning amendment to the select board? Now, as a board, you can decide whether to do so or not.
Chair would entertain a motion to,
Question.
oops, hold on that.
This sheet here,
Mhm.
in red,
Mhm.
is that the affected area?
Yes.
Only that red area?
Yes.
Do you want to put that up, Tony?
Sure. Just.
Is that a different check or is it the same?
Nope. This is the same map as last year.
Is that what you plan on bringing that up?
No. Well, yeah, the map.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's the same map as was last year.
This is a small, I look at this as a small area to give up, the town to give up and allow that area to be developed compared to what you're gonna lose, we all are gonna lose from what the state is. It's all in one area, it's not going up High Street all the way, it's, to me, a lot of that probably cannot be developed. But the only way you're gonna know that is to spend the money that somebody come in there and look at it. But I think myself, in all my experiences over the years of developing, I think that this is a good handout. I think it's good for the town, myself.
I would tend to disagree because we're just going right head on.
To me, it just seems like it's step one. If we agree to that little red area, what's next?
Yeah, that's, I think what Mr. Ellis is pointing out is if the state turned around after July 14th, if the state turned around and they said, oh, thanks for all your hard work, town planner, we appreciate the map that you drew, this is what we like, And they could, just do a circle, here's your train station, right around, who knows? We don't know, it's hypothetical. What's that?
Isn't that fundamentally what it's about? They want to take our zoning rights away. Even if we pick a zone, and if we all agree that they still have right to monkey with our zones, and they could do more after the fact. Because we'll lose it, what is it, the home rule, we're surrendering home rule.
Yeah, I don't know if they're taking it so much away. They're just, because right now, all it is for the zoning is to draw the imaginary line in an area that's in compliance with half mile from the train station and all that stuff. They didn't specify many other things. We certainly hope that moving forward, that they don't start saying things like that, then
Yes, if I might, Mr. Chair.
town planner.
So the whole concept is they said to the towns, we just want you to create the zone. And here's some numbers. We want you to just create the zone. You don't have to put in infrastructure. You don't have to put up housing. You don't have to do anything except create the zone. That's all we want you to do is create the zone. And within that zone, you can create a bylaw to regulate the zone. So it'll be as of right, but you can still have some control. You can't deny it, but you can control it and, screening, site plan review, et cetera, et cetera. That's how you'll control the zone. That's all they want. That's all it would, is just, so now it's just the reality is, and even they know the reality, is even though they might say, for instance, because we're a commuter rail town, 750 units. Through all the webinars I went through, they knew that you're never going to get to that because of wetlands, septic systems, water, whatever, soils. There's always, but they had to come up with a number. So that's the number, they came up with numbers.
Now, didn't the state reject some towns' plans that had zones with unbuildable areas?
Yeah.
They reviewed, matter of fact, they reviewed ours because it was a preliminary adoption review. So it was a case of, we'll take a look at what you have and we'll point out any flaws you might have. So that way, if you do comply, when you get here, there isn't much for you to, we can pretty much say, okay, you're good. And the only thing they had for us was like 4 or 5 comments, and the biggest one was, hey, you show 2 lots in there that you're calling for frontage that's like 150 feet, and you have 2 lots that don't meet that frontage, so you need to take it out of the equation.
And they commented about the landlocked parcel.
Yeah, this landlocked piece, yeah. So they review, for instance, the towns that have complied, they come up with this, they go for the pre-adoption, then they give it to the state reviews it, takes a look and says, okay, yeah, they're good with the law, and they approve their zone.
But if we okay this, goes to the select board, then it goes back to town.
Right, so if the planning board said, we want to recommend it to the select board, then the select board would hand it back to you as the planning board to do a public hearing. Same thing would happen if it was the zoning board, 10 citizens, a regional planning agency. If they go to the select board and say, hey, we're proposing this amendment, it has to come to the planning board for a public hearing, no matter what. That's part of the process. Don't do that, AG has to kick it out. So, like I said, I'm just putting it before you to let you guys decide what you want to do,
Yeah. I like.
if you want to do anything.
I like the MBTA action.
Chair would entertain a motion to have the planning board favorably recommend movement of the MBTA action plan only to the select board.
So we,
Motion's been made. I'll call one more time. There's a motion on the floor. Motion has not been seconded. That motion dies. Great.
So, would you still, how about a motion regarding the actual agenda item?
if we put it on for the actual agenda item, what does that do for the action plan?
So is the board,
So that,
is the chair gonna call for a motion to?
yeah, the board is not favorable towards the action plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what about
Yeah.
the use?
Chair would entertain a motion for the favorable action to the select board for the amending of the Town of Hanson zoning map and the Town of Hanson land use regulation zoning bylaw as stated in the MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District zoning from the state.
No, what did you just said?
Just moving the actual change from the state.
If
So
I-
entertain a motion for that.
If I may, Mr. Chair, if I
Yeah.
might make a recommendation, recommend a motion similar to, is the planning board, what is the pleasure of the board? Or is the board interested in recommending an amendment to the zoning bylaw to conform to MBTA district section 3A of the zoning act?
I don't know.
Question on the notion.
Well, we're gonna talk about, we can see the structure of this. All right, then we can talk about it. So, entertain a motion for the planning board to recommend favorably the adoption,
Or just to recommend?
or just to recommend, yeah, because the adoption won't happen. Just to recommend favorably,
No, remove favorably. You just recommend it. Are you willing to, does the board want to recommend a bylaw change regarding the MBTA to the
we don't
select
have to
board?
move forward. Okay, I got you. The chair would entertain a motion to recommend a bylaw change to conform to the state's MBTA Communities Multifamily Overlay District.
Question.
Is there a second?
I wanna, before I can make a motion,
It has to be seconded first. Okay, all right, there's a second by Mr. Ellis. There's a motion by Mr. Ellis, is there a second? In order to be discussed, it has to be seconded. And then, it can be amended, that's the way it would go. So there's a motion on the floor. It has not been seconded, that motion dies. Thank you.
I didn't get my question yet. Oh, crap, now I forgot what I was gonna ask.
So to clear the record, that means that our Town of Hanson Planning Board is not favorable on the action plan, and our Town of Hanson Planning Board is not favorable in moving forward with any bylaw change for the MBTA zoning.
Exactly.
Just want to make that clear.
Yep.
I kept saying favorable because I was just still thinking about the action plan. Great, that's that.
I make a comment.
Mr. Ellis.
I still think you cut, what's that saying, you cut my nose off,
Spike
like
your
the face? I do, that's such a small area, and like, you were saying that it's a small area, and we would be going in the right direction.
Well, there's a large probability that this is going to come back to the planning board for a public hearing anyway.
I really do,
Only if someone proposes the amendment.
All right. All right, moving on. Thank you for your attendance. If you're going to stay, we don't have much left as far as our agenda goes. Yeah, thank you as well. Board business, right there at the very end there, we're in our board business section. Correspondence. So for the record, the planning board received a correspondence in regards to a recent event that's happening with multiple land use boards. Sadly, unfortunately, the correspondence was received as an anonymous. For the record and for the townspeople, just to let everybody know, we don't deal with anonymous filings. So if there's anybody that ever wants to write anything again, please make sure that you, as we do with audience members, you got to take your claim, your name, record. And that's what we need to say about that.
I do have a secondary correspondence, Mr. Chair.
Secondary correspondence, town planner.
So this came from the Hanson Conservation Commission.
Yes, sir.
And it was a So to the Land Use Boards, Committees, Commissions from Hanson Conservation Commission, January 13th, 2025, subject Land Use Committee meetings. In accordance with the goals of the recently adopted Town of Hanson Master Plan, the Conservation Commission would like to begin the scheduling process for a joint meeting of the town's land use boards, committees, and commissions. Kindly reply to this memo before February 3rd, I was able to extend the time, 2025, with feasible dates for your board, committee, or commission to attend a joint meeting in March or April 2025. Relevant pages of the 2024 to 2034 master plan are attached for your reference. We look forward to your prompt response and our continued cooperation.
Are we allowed, we're allowed to post it as a joint meeting, as a super meeting for any one of our planning board meetings, right, Tony?
Yes, you
So we
can.
could do March 10th, we could do March 24th. Any interest, where are they talking about having this meeting?
There's nothing discussing that.
Pizza's on them, right? Any interest from the board to have a super board meeting with the Conservation Commission and other land use boards in connection with one of our planning board meetings on the 10th or the 24th?
I would say the 24th.
Is that in the form of a motion?
Yes.
Mr. Benonato has a motion on the floor for us to entertain the Conservation Commission's request to have a super board meeting with the planning board, conservation, and other land use boards on March 24th. Is that a second?
I don't have a calendar here,
24th is
All
the
right.
second meeting in March.
okay, yeah, the first Monday that is out,
Is that-
is a park meeting.
Correct.
Okay, so it won't affect the, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Is there a second?
Second?
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 401, Tony, so you can reach out about doing a super board meeting for the 24th. Does anybody want to entertain a motion for a second date?
What is the problem? To have a super board meeting.
I gotta step over one second.
No, nothing on the second date. So other than that, Tony, we'll hear back from you, but we're favorable for the 24th to do a joint meeting with them.
So just note for the record that member Benonato stepped out of the room at 7:58 PM. I'm sorry, what was that?
So yeah, so we'll have please propose to the conservation to have a super board meeting on the
To the
24th.
4th of March?
Yeah.
Okay,
Second meeting probably TBD if they come back to us with a different date.
okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Is there an ask on the topic of discussion?
So it's the master plan, or really, it's,
You want to talk about the master plan?
well, basically, master plan and primary document for setting policies and strategies. The action plan details how master plan is implemented. And then land use goals, do an in-depth review, just get the boards together to, and we were sort of gonna do this anyway,
Yeah.
which was basically pull out the master plan, take a look at a goal and see if we could try and achieve that goal. And they just sort of, let's say, beat us to the punch.
That's okay. So they're going
Yeah.
to chair the meeting. They're going to,
Yeah, I think it's more like they were looking for dates and then we'll get more information.
Okay.
So, I will let them know that the planning board is willing on the 24th of March.
Yeah.
And then we can go from there.
if they're going to provide their administrative assistant, I don't see any reason for attendance, for doubling up on minutes and all that. It's going to be recorded, right?
Let the record show that, member Benonato returned to the meeting at 7:59 PM.
I don't write her a check. But I just a
Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll let them know about the date. I'll get more information. I'll
Perfect.
pass it along.
And if they're gonna have their office administrative assistant, there's no reason for us to double up with that.
Just send a representative.
I think they're asking for a super board. Oh, Kim?
No,
Yeah. He goes to their meetings all the time. Grant updates, Tony, my top planner.
So based on our conversations, based on some of the events this evening, I'd say we had 2 grants, and I don't know what's going to happen there. The rest of the grants, all the work's in process. I'll be bringing an update on the different projects We should be getting some information on the smart growth. And there's been movement on the 0 West Washington Street.
Okay.
They did some test pits out there. They've also just provided a survey plan of the property. So that's moving forward. I believe the next steps are going to be moving forward to the Conservation Commission to establish and approve the wetland line. There's a lot of work going on the different grants. They're in different stages. I'll put an update together in writing so that the board can see what's going on.
Great, thank you.
The housing production plan, as you're aware, the open space and recreation plan. I believe that yourself
I
and,
didn't see any reply.
yeah,
He was here tonight.
right. They want to sit down with the open space committee. Actually, Mr. Clemens was in my office attending one of the Zoom calls. And so I had a little conversation with him because my understanding, it seems to be maybe 2, but there's possibly 4 people. So what I offered to the consultant was, look, if you want to meet with the open space committee members, the ones that are
Breathing?
one is the chair of the planning board. You can use planning board time. So on the 24th, I have scheduled for a public hearing for the open space and recreation plan. They'll come in, they'll do some presentations, see what they're doing. They've done some interviews. There's been some Zoom calls. And actually, I think there's 2 this week that I'm sitting in on. They've interviewed different people, and they'll give us a presentation.
Okay.
So that'll begin that process. So there'll be, if there's public that's interested in providing input, February 24th.
Anybody have anything to go to the order for the town plan? Go to the order for the planning board? Last item of business is the planning board meeting, which is tentatively scheduled for Monday, February 24th, 2025. Is there a motion to have that set in stone? So moved. Motion's been made by Mr. Cohen. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Benonato. The next, any discussion in regards to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 401, Tony. Our next planning board meeting will be on February 24th, 2025. Entertain a motion to adjourn. That motion's been made by Mr. Ellis, seconded by Mr. Benonato. Any discussion in regards to that motion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? We are adjourned, 8:03.